I want to talk today about this idea of being pre-approved. This morning I'd already finished my talk and had everything ready to go. And I looked at my emails, and sure enough, here comes an email that tells me my credit has been pre-approved and that now I have even more credit with PayPal than I had before. So I think we all know what it feels like to have those things come in the mail, they come in the email that tell us that we're pre-approved. And really, what does that mean? It simply means we're credit worthy. It doesn't say how much we're pre-approved for. It doesn't tell us what we can really buy for it. It just says, I see that you're credit worthy. Well, I've thought a lot about this and how sometimes in our lives, maybe oftentimes in our lives, we struggle with being pre-approved or having God's approval, if you will. When life is tough and things aren't going well, we kind of wonder, gee, does God really notice? Does God really care? When we're sick, when we're hurt, when we're brokenhearted, we feel that sense in so many ways. And I think traditional religion has given us kind of a false framework in the sense that there are many Christian traditions where we are taught that we have some sort of defect, but by our birth that we have this, what we call original sin. And so I thought to myself, is that really what the Bible teaches? Or is it something bigger and more profound? In the book of Genesis, chapter 1 and 2, that we talked about several months ago, we learned that initial creation story, chapter 1, was a beautiful, poetic telling of creation. Stars and moon and light and sea and sky. And at the very end of that creation was the human awareness. And at each level, God saw that it was good and blessed it with good. So it doesn't seem to me that in chapter 1, we're defective. As we move into chapter 2, we learn about the garden story, and we recognize that once again, we see this beautiful, lush environment in which humankind is blessed over and over again. But the part of the creation story is very interesting in chapter 2, because at the very end of that chapter, we recognize or become aware of the gift that God gives to humans only, and that is the gift of free will. We can choose our path. We can choose the way we think. We can alter our course. And so we see in the Garden of Eden story that Adam and Eve chose to find wisdom outside of themselves. That's really the essence of the story. They chose to find wisdom outside of themselves instead of looking into their God self. And this is the very first lesson, and it's probably the hardest lesson we have to learn over and over and over again in life. Every action has a consequence. Now, some of those actions, Mom says, don't put your hand on the hot stove, have some painful consequences. And other actions have some joyous consequences. But here in the very first chapters, 2 chapters, we are not called defective. We are called people who choose, and God saw that it was good. In the book of Jeremiah, the very first chapter, it opens up, by God speaking to the prophet. And he is saying to the prophet, before you were born, I knew you. Before you were formed in the womb, I consecrated you. Now, you might be saying to me, okay, Marianne, but God is speaking to the prophet. Yes, that is true. But what we need to realize and remember always is God does not pick and choose. God is a universal energy. What God does for one, God does for all. Therefore, your birth, my birth. We were known to God. We were known to the universe before we were ever created, before we were even a thought in the universe. God consecrated us for the life that we live right here and now. How powerful is that thought? You see, a week from today, we're going to be starting our Advent series on Sunday evening, and I really invite you to join me in that, because we're going to be looking at the story not from the perspective of a birth that happened 2,000 years ago that was magical and special, but it is the awakening and the honoring of the birth within ourselves that is magical and special. That's really what the Christmas story is all about. So I invite you to be with me as we do that. But the third reference I want to use today is from the book of Psalms. I love the book of Psalms. I've studied it. I've prayed with it. It has been a book that has been with me for many, many times. And just go on Google and you will find that there are tons, hundreds of books written about the Psalms, on the Psalms, pray with the Psalms. Why? Why are the Psalms, after all these, they're 3,000 years old. Why are they so popular? Because within the Psalms, what we see are words, very poetic, very beautiful, and music. Remember, the Psalms were written as the songs for worship, just like our hymnal in the pew. Those songs in there, if you lost the hymnal and lost the music, the songs themselves have the music embedded in them. You see, the thing is with the Psalms, we no longer know the music. And we don't even have really the 100% correct words, because the Psalms were written in Hebrew and we don't read them in Hebrew. We're reading them in English. But that doesn't mean that the music isn't resonant within them. Therefore, it speaks to a very elemental quality. This is what I love about the Psalms. They are about the human condition. We have Psalms of thanksgiving and praise. We have Psalms that many of you are familiar with lament. We have what we call the kingship Psalms. All these different kinds of songs or categories of Psalms that speak to our very real human condition. All too often, the only Psalm that we're really familiar with to any degree is the 23rd Psalm. But I'm going to read to you today Psalm number 8. It's not that long, so I think you can make it through. And we're going to look at how embedded within this psalm is a message about how we are already pre-approved, written some 3,000 years ago. O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have set your glory above the heavens. Out of the mouths of babes and infants, you have founded a bulwark because of your foes, to silence the enemy and the avenger. When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have established, what are human beings that you are mindful of them? Mortals that you care for them. Yet you have made them a little lower than God and crowned them with glory and honor. You have given them dominion over all the works of your hands. You have put all things under their feet. All the sheep and oxen, all the birds of the field, the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, whatever passes along the paths of the sea. O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. What a beautiful, beautiful rendition, because in the first part of the psalm, there's this praise and honoring to all that God has created. And then that question comes. Here's the psalmist standing, looking out at the stars, looking out at the vastness of the universe, and he goes, wow, what am I? What am I that you, oh God, are mindful of me? And not only are you mindful of me, you have given me power, authority, choice, dominion over all things. Back to that creation, that beautiful creation story in chapter 1 of Genesis. After everything is created, then humanity is created and given dominion. And I want to be very clear about this word dominion. Dominion is not dominance. Dominion is to care for. We have been charged to care for all of creation, sort of like we're charged in God's name to care for all of creation. Well, I thought it was a very beautiful psalm. And then one day I recognized if you change the pronoun from the third person to the first person, how much more powerful is this psalm? In the third paragraph, it says, when I look at the heavens, the works of your hands, the moon and the stars that you, God, have established, what am I that you are mindful of me? That touches me. What am I? When I look at all what am I that God is mindful of me and that you care for me? Take it out of the third person, the them, the human. What about me? You have made me a little lower than God, and you have crowned me with honor and glory. You have given me dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under my feet. I can't help but think as we read the Psalms that there's something so very powerful in them. Speak of the human condition, and they challenge us to look up, to lift up our eyes, to recognize that we are not defective in some way, shape, or form from even before we were born. Rather, we've been pre-approved. God says, even before you were born, I knew you. Even before you were in the womb, I consecrated you to come to this place called planet Earth and to work in my name, to be responsible and caring for all of creation. And you know, when we can understand the Psalms as both worship, words, and music, we begin to understand a very dynamic power that connects us over all space and time. You see, because music that becomes embedded in words is always embedded words, even if you're not making a reference to the song itself. For example, you're sitting watching a movie and somebody in the movie, no reference to the song, says, I can't get no satisfaction. Well, what does everybody do? Dun, 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 dun. We already hear Mick Jagger in the background, or we hear the opening notes of that song, and immediately the words come to our mind. So music and its words are embedded together. What is so beautiful about that is worship music is about vibration, is about lifting us up, is about healing. Is it any accident that worship has always had music? Because it shifts us, it opens our heart, it allows us to come out of our critical thinking mind and see our life in a whole new way. This is, I think it's so critical that we get. We've been charged with something important here. And trust me, I'm preaching to my own choir here, because I know that I get up in the morning and go, really? I don't think I want to do this. And I go through my stuff just like everybody else does. There's no divine dispensation. We all struggle with that conflict of our humanness trying to express our divinity day in and day out. But I think, or I believe, I feel for myself, that if I can see that for thousands of years, people have already known and talked about, preached about, lived with the idea that we were already consecrated, we were already blessed and pre-approved, we could then begin to understand that our life, no matter how long, how short, no matter what we've done or what we've failed to do, has purpose, intention, and meaning. Yes, we've taken some action, we've made some decisions, and we've suffered the consequence of them. I get that, me too. But that also tells us we have the power to make different decisions. It gives us the knowing and the understanding that because we are pre-approved, maybe we might not get as much credit as we thought we would, but we still have credit available. So as a good teacher, I have an assignment for you. I want you to go and find Psalm number 8. Now, you can find it on the internet if you don't have a Bible. There's various and sundry translations of it, but I want you to translate the third and fourth stanza in the first person. Don't think about them and they. Think about me and mine and I. And I want you to go outside on a dark night with just a few stars. And I want you to look up at the heavens and all of creation. And I want you to recite that psalm to yourself. How majestic are you, God, that you created all of this. And at the end of all of that creation, you charge me with taking care of it. An incredibly powerful thought as we move into this time of Advent and Christmas, the honoring and the reawakening to the beauty of our own personal human birth. Because this week is Thanksgiving, I also wanted to share with you a little blessing that you might use at your table. I don't know about you, but folks gather around and somebody says, well, maybe we should say a prayer, and everybody looks down and they usually look at me like, you're the minister, you ought to be praying something. And I think to myself, oh, I hate this part, okay? So we created a ritual that we used to use at retreats, every time we had a board meeting, every time we had a gathering. And it's simple. You get 3 candles and you put them in the center of the table. Think Thanksgiving Day, everybody's sitting around the table. Should we say a prayer? Yes, here is the prayer. First, I light the candle for all of those who have gone before us. What are you doing? Calling in the ancestors. They're right at the edge of the table anyway. Just because you can't see them. It's part of that great vibration of music and message and life and love. A communion of saints, whatever words make it real for you, to invite the ancestors to the celebration. Light the second candle for those who are here today. This is a magic moment in time. We are sitting at a table, enjoying fellowship, enjoying being together, even if it is only one time a year. And the third candle is for all of those that will come after us. Who knows who will be here next year, sitting around the table? Who knows what new life, new friends, new changes, new relationships will be happening? And in the great circle of Thanksgiving, you bless those who have gone before, those who are here today, and those who will come after. Because what you realize in that moment of Thanksgiving and opening, that each and every one of us come to this table pre-approved. Each and every one of us come to this moment in time, blessed and special. And so I invite you this Thanksgiving to go out and celebrate the stars at night and the sun and the moon and the landscape, and know that you were born with intention and purpose. And secondly, to celebrate the great vibration of ancestors today and tomorrow as we come together and celebrate the feast of Thanksgiving this Thursday afternoon. Thank you for being with me today.